Preview.
So Ryan, in your experience in transactions, what do you think is the most overlooked issue that, creates fire drills at the end or people just don't anticipate as they're going through a transaction?
Yeah, I would say some basic blocking and tackling in the accounting function, right? That, do you really have a good handle on how quickly you can get to your data, good data quickly? I think I've seen at times where people underestimate the difficulty and the constraints on the team to get to the data that they need, and underestimating the manual manipulation that has been happening in the organization to get what they need. So, um, sometimes it's difficult to get to the data you need because of the ERP constraints on the team, bad process, bad system, but not to be overlooked.
Yeah, data is always a challenge, basically in in most clients, right? I mean, they have the data, they just can't get access to it and use it. So what do people do in that situation? I mean, how do clients go about solving that problem? I mean, the data's there, and either there's a heavy manual intervention in getting it into format they need to create their financial statements, or they just can't get access to it. So how do they solve that problem?
Well, I think you solved that problem starting yesterday, right? I think as you lead up to a transaction, it's good to know where your weaknesses are and how to get to the data, right? So it's having a good understanding of your technology stack, the information that's there, what the limitations are. So I think just, starting oftentimes with just some study of the team, understanding the folks on the ground, what are the challenges they face in terms of their close, their reconciliations, what are the difficulties they see in the data, to really understand, so you know what you're working with before you get too late in the process and you've got maybe some deadlines you can't meet or constraints you can't overcome.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Rhonda, what do you think is the most overlooked aspect of transactions and kind of CFOs and their challenges of managing through transactions?
I think they overlook the complexity of a transaction. I mean, I think high level, obviously CFOs are very experienced and very knowledgeable. But sometimes just that complexity of the transaction is overlooked. There's a lot of different nuances. And I think, we've hit on some things, the data, historical data, again, thinking about, the milestones that have to be hit. How is my company going to run after a transaction? Especially again, if we're talking about a company that was private and now is going to go public, things like that, or integration, if they're doing an acquisition, thinking about how that integration works and the complexities of that, and just your organization as a whole, all the people, that are involved in your organization, how are they impacted? Things like that. Those are things I think sometimes can be overlooked.